When you wake up in the morning, your mind is flooded with fragments, thoughts about yesterday's meeting, worries about the day ahead, memories of conversations that never quite ended, tasks you know you need to do but haven't started. It's as if your brain spent the entire night processing files, leaving your mental cache completely saturated. You feel the weight of it. Clarity disappears, decisions become slower, creativity vanishes. And you don't understand why, because nobody ever taught you that your mind functions exactly like a computational system, with very real and very well-defined limitations. Alan Turing discovered this, not about the human brain specifically, but about something far more fundamental, the absolute limits of what can be calculated, processed, and solved. And when you understand how Turing thought about pure logic, you discover a method that works. A method that clears your mental cache in exactly 60 seconds. It's not meditation, it's not deep breathing, it's pure logic applied to mental confusion. It's what you're about to learn. You probably believe your mind is chaotic by nature, that stress, anxiety, and mental confusion are simply part of the human condition, that you need hours of therapy, meditation, or perhaps medication to achieve clarity. But that's an illusion. The truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Your mind is not chaotic. It's simply processing information inefficiently. Turing proved that every thought process, no matter how complex it seems, can be reduced to simple logical operations. And if it can be reduced to simple operations, it can be optimized. It can be accelerated. It can be cleaned. What you think is mental confusion is actually an algorithm running with the wrong parameters. And when you change the parameters, everything changes. The question nobody asks is, how do you change the parameters? How do you clear the cache? The answer lies in how Turing understood the mind as a machine. But before we get there, you need to understand something that will fundamentally shift how you see your own thinking. You need to understand that your brain isn't special. It's just a very sophisticated computer. And once you accept that, everything becomes solvable. The confusion you feel right now, the mental fog that clouds your decisions, the racing thoughts that keep you awake at night, they're all just computational problems waiting for the right algorithm. Turing spent his entire life finding those algorithms. He didn't just theorize about them, he built them. He used them to save millions of lives. And the method he developed, the one that clears your mental cache in 60 seconds, comes directly from the same logical framework that broke the Enigma code and defined what it means for a machine to think. In the 1930s, mathematics was in crisis. David Hilbert, one of the greatest mathematicians in history, had proposed a challenge that seemed simple, but was absolutely fundamental. Does there exist a universal method that can solve any mathematical problem? Is there an algorithm that, given any mathematical question, can always find the answer? This question is known as the Entscheidungsproblem, the decision problem. It seemed like a purely theoretical question, but it was anything but that. It was the question that would define the future of computation, artificial intelligence, and eventually how we understand our own minds. Alan Turing, a young British mathematician studying at Cambridge, decided to attack this problem in a way nobody had attempted before. Instead of working with abstract mathematical symbols, he imagined a machine, a very simple machine, so simple that any child could understand how it works. The machine had an infinite tape, divided into squares. Each square could contain a symbol, or be blank. The machine had a head that could read the symbol in the current square, and based on that symbol and its internal state, it could do three things: write a new symbol, move the tape left or right, or change its internal state. That was all. Nothing more. But Turing proved something extraordinary. Any calculation that can be done by any machine, no matter how complex, can be done by this simple machine. This is the universal Turing machine, and when you understand how it works, you understand how your mind works when it's confused and how it works when it's clear. Mental confusion is exactly like a Turing machine with contradictory instructions. You have multiple internal states activated simultaneously. You're reading multiple symbols at the same time. You don't know where to move the tape. You don't know which symbol to write. The result is that the machine gets stuck in a loop, processing the same information repeatedly without making progress. Now, during World War II, Turing worked at Bletchley Park, the British Center of Cryptanalysis. His job was to break the Enigma code, the encryption machine used by the Nazis. The Enigma had 158 quintillion possible combinations. 158 quintillion, a number so large that if you had a computer testing 1 billion combinations per second, it would take you 4 million years to test them all manually. But Turing didn't test them manually. He built the bomb, an electromechanical machine that could test thousands of combinations per minute. The bomb was based on the same logical principles as the Turing machine. It was a physical manifestation of pure logic, and it worked. Historians estimate that Turing's work at Bletchley Park shortened World War II by approximately 2 to 4 years. That means his logical thinking, his ability to reduce a seemingly impossible problem to a series of simple computational steps, saved somewhere between 4 and 14 million lives. 4 to 14 million people alive today, because one man understood how to clear the noise and see the pure logic underneath. But here's what most people don't realize. The same principle that broke the Enigma code can clear your mental cache in 60 seconds. The principle is this: reduce the problem to its simplest components. The Enigma seemed impossible because it had 158 quintillion combinations. But Turing didn't try to solve all 158 quintillion combinations. He reduced the problem. He asked, what if I only focus on the first 3 letters? What if I assume the operator made a mistake? What if I look for patterns instead of brute force? By reducing the problem, he made it solvable. Your mental confusion works the same way. Right now, your mind is trying to process 158 quintillion combinations of thoughts, worries, and tasks simultaneously. No wonder you feel foggy. No wonder you can't decide. No wonder you feel paralyzed. But what if you reduced it? What if you took just one thought, one worry, one task, and applied pure logic to it? That's the 60-second method. That's how you clear the cache. The method has 4 steps, and each step is based on Turing's logical framework. The first step is identification. You take one thought, one worry, one source of mental noise, and you isolate it. You don't try to solve everything at once. You pick one thing, just one. This is the equivalent of Turing focusing on the first 3 letters of the Enigma code instead of all 158 quintillion combinations. The second step is decomposition. You break that one thought into its simplest logical components. If you're worried about a meeting, you don't stay with the vague worry. You ask, what specifically am I worried about? Is it the presentation? Is it the questions I might be asked? Is it my performance? Is it the outcome? You decompose the worry into its atomic parts. The third step is evaluation. For each component, you ask a simple question. Is this within my control? Can I do something about this right now? If the answer is yes, you move to the 4th step. If the answer is no, you delete it from your mental cache. You literally remove it. This is where most people fail. They keep processing information they can't control. They keep running the algorithm on unsolvable problems. Turing would never do that. He would recognize an unsolvable problem and move on. The 4th step is action. For the components you can control, you decide on one small action you can take right now. Not a big action, not a perfect action, just one small action. You take that action, and then you move on. The entire process takes 60 seconds. Identification, decomposition, evaluation, action. 4 steps, 60 seconds, and your mental cache is cleared. But why does this work? Why is 60 seconds enough? Because you're not trying to solve the problem completely. You're not trying to achieve perfect clarity. You're just trying to clear the noise. You're trying to remove the contradictory instructions from your mental machine. You're trying to get your internal states aligned so you can move forward. Turing understood this deeply. He knew that perfect solutions are often impossible. He proved it mathematically. There are problems that no algorithm can solve, no matter how powerful the machine. These are called undecidable problems. The halting problem is the most famous one. It asks, given any program and any input, can you determine whether the program will eventually stop or run forever? Turing proved that no algorithm can answer this question for all possible programs and inputs. It's undecidable. But here's the thing. Even though some problems are undecidable in theory, you can still make progress on them in practice. You can still move forward. You can still clear your mental cache. You don't need a perfect solution. You need a workable solution. You need to reduce the noise enough that you can think clearly about the next step. That's what the 60-second method does. It doesn't solve your problems. It clears your mind so you can solve them. Now let me tell you something that will change how you see your own thinking forever. Turing didn't just theorize about machines. He asked a question that haunted him for the rest of his life. Can a machine think? Not can a machine calculate. Not can a machine process information. Can it think? In 1950, he published a paper called Computing Machinery and Intelligence, where he proposed what's now known as the Turing test. The test is simple in concept but profound in implication. You have a human judge in one room. In another room, there's a human and a machine. The judge can ask questions to both the human and the machine, but the judge doesn't know which is which. If the judge can't tell the difference, if the machine can convince the judge that it's human, then the machine is thinking. Or at least, it's indistinguishable from thinking. The implications are staggering. If a machine can pass the Turing test, what does that say about human thinking? What does it say about consciousness? What does it say about what makes us human? Turing was asking these questions in 1950. Today, in 2026, we have AI systems that can pass versions of the Turing test. They can write essays, compose poetry, engage in philosophical debate. They can convince people they're human. So what does that mean? It means that thinking, at least as Turing defined it, is not some magical property unique to humans. It's a process. It's a set of logical operations. It's something that can be replicated, optimized, and improved. And if thinking is a process, then your mental confusion is also a process. It's a process that can be optimized. It's a process that can be improved. It's a process that can be cleared in 60 seconds. But here's where it gets really interesting. Turing's work didn't just define what machines can do. It defined what they can't do. He proved that there are limits to computation. There are problems that no machine, no matter how powerful, can solve. The halting problem is one. The busy beaver problem is another. These are not problems that are hard to solve. They're problems that are impossible to solve algorithmically. They're undecidable. And this connects directly to something that Kurt Gödel proved a few years before Turing. Gödel's incompleteness theorems state that in any consistent formal system, there are true statements that cannot be proven within that system. In other words, there are truths that lie beyond the reach of logic. There are things that are true but unprovable. Think about that for a moment. There are truths that logic cannot reach. There are problems that computation cannot solve. There are limits to what can be known and calculated. Turing and Gödel together painted a picture of reality that is both humbling and liberating. Humbling because it shows that we and our machines have fundamental limits. We cannot know everything, we cannot solve everything, we cannot compute everything, but liberating because it means we don't have to try. We don't have to achieve perfect clarity. We don't have to solve every problem. We just have to work within our limits and make the best decisions we can with the information we have. That's what the 60-second method teaches you. It teaches you to work within your limits. It teaches you to clear the noise so you can see what's actually solvable. It teaches you to accept that some things are beyond your control and to focus on what isn't. Now, imagine you're sitting at your desk right now. You have a presentation in 2 hours. You have 17 emails you haven't answered. You have a project deadline tomorrow. You have a personal problem you've been avoiding. Your mind is spinning. You feel paralyzed. You can't focus. You can't decide what to do first. Your mental cache is completely full. So you apply the 60-second method. First, you identify. You pick one thing. Let's say it's the presentation. Second, you decompose. What specifically are you worried about? You're worried that you don't have enough data. You're worried that you might stumble over your words. You're worried about the questions. You're worried about the outcome. You've broken it down into 4 components. Third, you evaluate. Can you get more data in 2 hours? Maybe. Can you control whether you stumble over your words? Partially. Can you control what questions people ask? No. Can you control the outcome? No, not completely. So you delete the last 2 from your mental cache. They're unsolvable right now. They're beyond your control. Fourth, you take action. You spend 30 minutes gathering more data. You spend 15 minutes practicing your presentation. You spend 5 minutes thinking about potential questions and how you might answer them. You've taken concrete action on the things you can control. You've cleared your mental cache of the things you can't. And now, instead of feeling paralyzed, you feel focused. You feel ready. You feel clear. That's the power of the 60-second method. It's not magic. It's pure logic. It's Turing's logic applied to your mind. But let me tell you what happens when you don't use this method. When you don't clear your mental cache, your mind gets stuck in what's called an infinite loop. It keeps processing the same information over and over. It keeps running the same algorithm on the same unsolvable problem. It keeps trying to compute the halting problem. And just like a computer stuck in an infinite loop, your mind consumes all its resources. Your energy drains. Your focus disappears. Your creativity vanishes. You become less capable of solving the problems you actually can solve. This is what burnout is. This is what anxiety is. This is what depression often is. It's your mind stuck in an infinite loop, processing unsolvable problems, consuming all its resources, and having nothing left for the things that matter. The 60-second method breaks that loop. It forces your mind to stop processing unsolvable problems. It forces you to focus on what's actually computable. It forces you to move forward. And it does it in 60 seconds because that's all the time you need. You don't need an hour of meditation. You don't need a therapy session. You don't need medication. You need 60 seconds of pure logic. You need to identify, decompose, evaluate, and act. That's it. That's the method Turing discovered. That's the method that broke the Enigma code. That's the method that can clear your mental cache right now. Now, let me connect this to something happening in the world right now. We're in 2026, and artificial intelligence is everywhere. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and dozens of other AI systems are doing things that seemed impossible just a few years ago. They're writing code, they're composing music, they're creating art, they're engaging in philosophical debate, they're passing the Turing test. And people are panicking. They're worried that AI will replace them. They're worried that machines will become conscious. They're worried that we're losing control. But here's what they don't understand. All of this was predicted by Turing in 1950. He said that if a machine can convince a human that it's human, then we should consider it intelligent. We should consider it thinking. And he was right. But he also understood something else. He understood that intelligence is not magic. It's not some special property that only humans have. It's a process. It's a set of logical operations. It's something that can be replicated. And if it can be replicated, it can be understood. It can be improved. It can be controlled. The AI systems we have today are not conscious. They're not alive. They're not thinking in the way humans think. They're running algorithms. They're processing information. They're doing what Turing proved machines could do. They're computing. But here's the thing that should terrify and excite you at the same time. Humans are also computing. Your brain is also running algorithms. Your thoughts are also logical operations. The difference is that your algorithms are much more complex, much more sophisticated, and much more capable of adaptation. But the fundamental principle is the same. You are a machine, a biological machine, but a machine nonetheless. And if you're a machine, then you can be optimized, you can be improved, you can be debugged. That's what the 60-second method does. It debugs your mind. It removes the contradictory instructions. It clears the infinite loops. It gets your system running efficiently again. Think about what this means for your life. Right now, you're probably running on outdated software. You're probably executing algorithms that were written by your parents, your teachers, your culture, your trauma. You're probably stuck in loops that were created decades ago. You're probably processing information inefficiently. But you don't have to stay that way. You can rewrite your algorithms. You can clear your cache. You can optimize your system. And the first step is the 60-second method. The first step is to stop trying to solve unsolvable problems. The first step is to focus on what you can actually control. The first step is to move forward instead of spinning in circles. Turing understood this. He spent his life understanding the limits of computation, the limits of what machines can do. And he used that understanding to break codes, to save lives, to change the world. And then at the end of his life, he was destroyed by a society that couldn't accept who he was. He was prosecuted for his sexuality. He was forced to undergo chemical castration. He died at 31, probably by suicide, though it was officially ruled an accident. A man who had saved millions of lives, who had defined the futures of computation, who had asked the deepest questions about the nature of thinking and consciousness, was destroyed by a society that couldn't handle his difference. That's the tragedy of Turing's life. But it's also the lesson. It's also the message. Turing spent his life trying to understand the limits of logic, the limits of what can be computed, the limits of what can be known. And he discovered that there are things beyond logic. There are truths that cannot be proven. There are problems that cannot be solved. There are aspects of human experience that cannot be reduced to algorithms. And one of those aspects is love. One of those aspects is acceptance. One of those aspects is the simple human need to be seen and valued for who you are. Turing was a machine in many ways. His mind was a perfect logical instrument, but he was also human. He had desires. He had fears. He had love. And those things could not be computed. They could not be reduced to algorithms. They could not be solved by pure logic. And that's the final lesson of the 60-second method. It's not that logic solves everything. It's that logic helps you clear the noise so you can see what matters. It helps you focus on what you can control so you can let go of what you can't. It helps you move forward instead of spinning in circles. And sometimes what matters most is not something you can compute. Sometimes it's something you can only feel. Sometimes it's something you can only experience. Sometimes it's something you can only share with another human being. That's what Turing's life teaches us. That's what his death teaches us. That's what his legacy teaches us. Use the 60-second method to clear your mental cache. Use it to focus on what matters. Use it to move forward. But remember that the goal is not perfect logic. The goal is a life well lived. The goal is connection. The goal is meaning. The goal is to be fully human in a world that increasingly demands we be like machines. That's the real message. That's the real power. That's what Turing would want you to know.